Alright, hey guys, Paxter, and welcome back to another Pokemon Pocket video. In this video, we're going to be going over the best card from each type, essentially going down the list. So first water, lightning, darkness, and then eventually towards the end, getting into the trainer cards, both the best item and supporter card. I feel like this is the best way to end off 2025, looking at the best cards from this year, as well as looking at the potential of the cards as we cross over into 2026. If you guys are new to my channel, really do consider if you like and subscribe. Really does help me out tremendously, especially as a small-time content creator. So before I get into naming the cards, I just want to quickly mention my criteria on choosing the cards on this list. So I'm choosing cards that had huge meta prominence, as well as cards that have potential to be prominent in the coming meta. So into 26, still seeing some viability. Also keep in mind, this is my personal list. So if you guys agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below. Just please keep it civilized. Timestamps will also be in the description, purely out of convenience if you guys want to just look for a specific type. Also, hope you guys do enjoy this gameplay on the screen right here. Haven't recorded it yet, but this is from a live stream that I did on Christmas Eve. If you guys are curious, my Twitch is in the bottom right, as you can see. Also, almost forgot to mention, but I will also be including cards that came out late 2024 to this list, since this game did come out towards the tail end of last year. And of course, last year I didn't make a video like this. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's get right into it. So the first type that we'll be going over is water. And when you think about water, it's changed a lot. Back in the early days, we had Articuno EX, Starmie EX was super just prominent. That card having no retreat cost was just so good back in the day, especially since the game was a lot slower than it is now. And yeah, there's a lot of contenders, but I feel like only one card has just been absolutely dominating. Like, early game, kinda, it was good, but like didn't really shine until later on. You can probably tell where I'm going with this, of course. So the best water Pokemon is non-EX Greninja. Yeah, I feel like most of you aren't surprised. In this list, I'm trying to save like the kind of obvious choices, least divisive picks towards early on in this video, and then as the video progresses, getting more and more debatable. But yeah, non-EX Greninja, pretty obvious, especially nowadays. Just playing a huge part in the meta in a lot of decks. Even back in the day, I feel like back in the day, especially in Genetic Apex, wasn't as strong because I mean most people did prefer like Starmie EX, Articuno EX, and then later on Gyarados, Gyarados EX, paired with Paldea and Palkia, Manaphy. That was such a fun deck back in the day. Required a bit of RNG with coin flips, but coin flips are slowly returning to this game, so that could be good or bad, depending on you. But yeah, non-EX Greninja is just so goated, especially with like nowadays Cyrus, a monstrous combo with Suicune EX. And I'm sure you guys watching, I'm sure like probably like 40 or even 50% of you guys are probably sick of Suicune Greninja because it's been kind of dominating the meta for several months at this point. But it just shows how insane his deck is, especially paired with Cyrus. Like the Cyrus Greninja combo is just diabolical. Like it's caused me to concede, it's caused a lot of people to concede. This card being able to do just flat out 20 damage to any of your opponent's Pokemon gets so much value, and it really does add up over time. And even nowadays, looking at baby Pokemon, this guy can just 2-hit KO baby Pokemon using their ability. And even before Suicune EX, this card was paired with cards such as Giratina EX and Sylveon EX. Gain a ton of value, just once again chipping, sometimes not even attacking, just chipping your opponent's Pokemon gradually. That's his job. And then of course, once Suicune EX did come out, got even more powerful. Does 80 damage, keep in mind, paired with its ability, like the attack and ability. So given this, it is one of the best Oricorio counters out there currently. But yeah, overall, just a ton of fun, a ton of value. And even nowadays, like even outside Suicune EX or Greninja, I did go over meta tournaments recently. It should be the video before this, but people were pairing Greninja with Mega Altaria and as well Magnezone, the new Magnezone. So I mean, this guy just continues to be meta relevant for the foreseeable future. Like, has huge meta prominence in 2025 and in 2026. I can definitely see this guy still being as huge as they are today. And it's still kind of crazy to think that this guy came out once the game came out, Genetic Apex, and he's been broken upon release, essentially. And yeah, water type goes to Greninja, the best water type card. The next color archetype that we'll be going over is Lightning. And Lightning, there's a lot of contenders as well. Similar to Greninja, Magneton has been out ever since the game's release. There's that guy. Zero Aura as well, I mean, kind of got phased out, but I mean, generating that energy your first turn could help you out in the long run. Even Raichu EX, just be able to generate cards as well as kind of like doing a bit of damage to your opponent's active as well as pricking the bench. Sure, there's that card, but there's only one card that revolutionized the meta. And again, if you ever play this game, it's very obvious at this point, but the best Lightning Pokemon card is Oricorio. This card, enough said, man. I mean, if you've seen this guy around, if you play this game for at least like 6 months, this Pokemon is just that good. I've said this analogy before, but pre-Oricorio, it was a lawless land. EXs were running around rampant. They were just bullying non-EXs, just doing whatever they want. but then the sheriff of the town, Oricorio, comes into the town and he sets everything right. This guy put EXs in their rightful place below him because, yeah, Oricorio, I mean, if you guys don't know somehow, ability Safeguard prevents all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon EX. Just not taking any damage from EX aside from ability damage from cards such as Darker EX, as well as status effects, so like Poison, burnt damage could affect Oricorio. But aside from that, just being an absolute wall. Mega Charizard Y EX came out recently. That guy does 250 damage, and Oricorio can just tank that unfazed. This is why I refer to him as Oricorio the Nightmare Bird, because that's what he is for EX Pokemon, essentially. Say Oricorio was a huge nerf to EXs once this card was released. Initially wasn't as good, because keep in mind, during, I believe, Celestial Guardians, there weren't really any good Lightning type cards in the meta at the time. I mean, sure, there's Pikachu EX, if you even want to stretch Pachirisu EX, yeah, those exist. But it wasn't until the next month where we got Zeraora, Tapu Koko EX, making Oricorio much more viable in their respective color archetype. And ever since then, this guy got continually more and more broken. I mean, baby Pokemon were released, Elemental Switch. So yeah, a ton of buffs to this guy. And then nowadays, looking at the current meta, this guy is prominently paired with Magnezone. And Magnezone, I mean, I should probably just mention Magneton as well. Like, that's probably like an honorable mention. Magneton, Genetic Apex Magneton is a close second to the best Lightning type Pokemon card. Just getting a ton of value. You essentially don't even have to run Lightning Energy to have this guy attack because, of course, I mean, looking at the ability, this card gives itself Lightning Energy each turn. So, I mean, in a couple turns, once you get into Magnezone, you can just feed Magnezone whatever type of energy and just keep attacking. It's just like that. And looking at the attack, only does 50 damage, but it really does pay off, like in the long run, especially since, again, this is an EX wall. So running this guy, you get a ton of value. Definitely damage. I mean, you could also do 70 damage if you're going against something like water type. So yeah, I did mention that non-EX Greninja does counter this card, but I mean, you could also run Giant Cape to survive at least one turn from a Greninja attack. And also keep in mind, for that deck, you're doing type advantage. So depending on the game, you can just keep on bullying your opponent's Suicune EX. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, this guy quite literally revolutionized the meta. Like, I feel like nowadays, whenever you're making a deck, to make it viable, you always have to think, can this deck counter Oricorio? Is there an Oricorio condition to this deck? So one recent deck that comes to mind is Mega Alteri EX. That deck, you want to run non-EXs that could counter Oricorio. So we have cards such as Sableye, non-EX Sableye, even non-EX Altaria that are primarily ran to counteract Oricorio. Let's say in an alternate universe, Oricorio doesn't exist in this game. That Mega Altaria deck will be drastically different. Far fewer non-EXs. I mean, sure, we'll probably have like Jirachi and Chingling just like to get a bit of disruption, but far less non-EXs in the overall meta. And yeah, Oricorio takes the title of the best Lightning type Pokemon of 2025. The next type that we'll be going over is Darkness. And looking at Darkness, I feel like it's also kind of obvious. This is why I put this in the early on the video, but yeah, I mean, looking at Darkness, there's really not many contenders. I mean, Buzzwole EX is good, yeah. Nihilego, good, just like doing a little bit more poison damage. Yeah, I mean, there's probably more. Mega Absol, kind of new, but still pretty good. But when it comes to just like dominating the meta in terms of like the span of 2025 and still being meta relevant for foreseeable future, the title of the best Darkness type Pokemon has to go to Darkrai EX. Very obvious. Like, yeah, this guy's been essentially meta relevant ever since it got released. A common pairing upon release was with Weavile EX. Amazing synergy because with Weavile EX, to do max damage, your opponent's active Pokemon has to be damaged. And looking at Darkrai EX's ability, Nightmare Aura, each time you feed this card a Darkness energy, from your energy zone, you do 20 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So just amazing synergy right off the bat. And I feel like this card has amazing synergy with a ton of cards. Like, it's kind of broken how good this card is and still continues to be. So yeah, I mean, over time, you've seen variations, as I mentioned, Weavile EX, later on, Arceus EX, a month later, Giratina EX. And yeah, Darktina was just absolutely goated. Nowadays, slowly getting phased out, rather slow, and I feel like the current meta is just super fast, especially with the poke damage to the bench, with decks such as Suicune Greninja. So not really that viable nowadays, but back in the day, yeah, dude, Darktina just dominated the meta. It's just a super easy deck to use and a ton of consistency. Just an absolutely broken pairing. And yeah, that lasted for several months. And then currently this deck is commonly paired with Mega Absol EX and Hydreigon. Overall, you're getting a ton of value running this card. Because yeah, Nightmare Aura, good. I mean, sure, it's only 20 damage, but that 20 damage does add up in the long run. In 3 turns, you're doing 60 passive damage, keep that in mind. And his attack is not as bad as well, doing 80 damage. So yeah, decent damage, decent poke, and amazing synergy with other trainer cards as well, such as Cyrus, because then you're chipping your opponent's active. If they retreat, the Cyrus, so you can play this card in very fast decks as well as very slow decks, while equally so applying pressure to your opponent. And yeah, Darkrai EX is the best Darkness Pokemon of 2025. Heading into Psychic, this is where it gets kind of divisive. You guys can agree, you guys can disagree, but just judging from my criteria, again, to reiterate, my criteria are cards that had huge meta prominence in the past, as well as high potential in the future. And with that being said, I mean, we have cards such as Mega Altair EX, very good in this current meta, but came out towards the tail end, but of course came out rather recently, so I mean, I did kind of exclude it from this list. And given my criteria, the best Psychic card of 2025 goes to Giratina EX. Yeah, Darkrai EX is lover, and this card, once again, similar to Darkrai EX, has been meta relevant upon release, and I really do like this card because, I mean, just looking into the past, we've always wanted a good Giratina card. They gave us one copy, it was mid. Second copy, the Dragon type card, it's a Dragon type card, enough said. And then finally we got this Behemoth right here. An amazing EX, just super good at what it does. I mean, it can be like kind of like a, you could use this Pokemon as a meat shield towards the early game, or even have it in the bench, just slowly building up. And one huge major thing to note is that this card is self-sufficient. It generates passive psychic energy. In other words, you can run this in any color archetype. You can run just like a water deck, have this guy in the bench. Like you could pair, once again, as I mentioned earlier, you could pair this with Greninja, non-EX Greninja, and just run pure water and still have this guy be viable. This guy is essentially a ticking time bomb. Sure, it'll take a couple of turns for this guy to get built, but once he's built, he just hits like a truck doing 130. But generally, this card should be attacking towards the late game, and then by then, I mean, you can probably just one-shot your opponent's Pokemon. And then yeah, just looking at the common pairings, Darkrai EX, of course, yeah, as I mentioned. Also, Greninja Sylveon EX. And then even nowadays, you could pair this card with either Mega Altair EX. Not really getting much value in my opinion, but I feel like a better pairing with this card is Indeedee EX. Indeedee EX can potentially do some decent amount of damage, as well as acts as a support. So yeah, Giratina EX does take 20 damage of recoil. Your next turn, given Indeedee's ability, you can just heal that right back up. So yeah, nowadays you can still run this card. The only main downside is the prominence of Squeak and Greninja. Poking the bench can just bully this Giratina before it gets built. That could be an issue, yeah, but it really depends. I mean, I can very much see this deck still being meta relevant in the foreseeable future, especially to add a very broken pairing to this card. You never know. I mean, looking at Whimsicott EX came out in Mega Rising, didn't seem that good. This meta, huge meta prominence currently as of right now. Yeah, it's really hard to tell. I mean, Giratina is one of those cards that just, it had huge meta prominence, fell off, came back slightly, and then nowadays slowly falling off, and you never know, could still definitely come back. So yeah, Giratina EX is the best Psychic card of 2025. However, an honorable mention is Chingling. Yeah, Chingling is fairly new, a baby Pokemon. This card is Psychic, but essentially just Psychic by name, because yeah, man, you can essentially run this card, since it's a baby Pokemon, you can run this card into any color archetype, and you get a ton of value. This card is just an amazing disruption, making it so that your opponent can't use item cards. And then towards the early game, you can get just insane value with this, because if your opponent, or like if you don't Pokeball or Rare Candy in a certain turn, that could be crucial and ultimately end up you either winning or losing the game, depending on the Chingling user. But yeah, Chingling, I just want to kind of note, Mega Altair is good as well, but I feel like Chingling will be far more meta relevant than Mega Altair, probably surpassing that card, especially if they continue including very broken item cards. I mean, this month they added Quick Grow Extract, essentially a must run for Grass type. Speaking of Grass type, the next color archetype that we will be going over is Grass. And yes, this is where it gets very controversial, because there's a lot of Grass cards. I feel like Grass type had overall just like a very strong prominence early on in the game. Later on, it got phased out very fast. And yeah, with that being said, I mean, just looking at some of the prominent Grass type cards from the past, I mean, Executor was good, but then nowadays, I mean, the coin flip is really this. I never really liked this card personally because of the coin flip. I would always get Tails, and sure, will exist to add more consistency, but in the long run, not really worth it for an EX. Celebi was good for 1 month and then never again. Yeah. Yanmega was good as well upon release and then slowly got phased out. Leafeon EX exists as well. Honestly, worth being an honorable mention. Could be viable in the future, but very specific in my opinion. Masquerada as well, just amazing non-EX, doing 130 damage to EX Pokemon. But the card that I chose that is the best Grass type card from 2025 is Jumpluff EX. I feel like a lot of people probably disagree, but I'm going to tell you why I chose this. So right off the bat, Jumpluff EX is rather decent. I mean, you can definitely climb to Master Ball. I've seen people climb to Master Ball using Jumpluff EX. So I mean, it's already good as it is. And the potential in the future is really limitless because although this card is grass type, I do kind of treat this card as a pseudo colorless card. Because yeah, sure it's grass type, but looking at the attack, it only requires one colorless energy. In other words, you can run this card in essentially any color archetype. And then looking into the future, I can very much see a card with a different color archetype pairing well with Jumpluff EX. So like, let's say like hypothetically, like to release like a very broken like metal card, you could pair Jumpluff EX with that card. Psychic card, same thing. Darkness type, same thing as well. So you can get a ton of value with Jumpluff EX. Even nowadays, I mean, the most popular pairing is Jumpluff EX paired with Oricorio. Jumpluff EX is the sword while Oricorio is the shield. I did make a deck showcase going over that fairly recently, I think like a couple weeks ago, and for that deck I did run pure lightning energy just to have it so that Oricorio can attack. So yeah, there's that. I feel like overall people have slept on this card. Like the potential of this card, upon release everyone did kind of enjoy, like people were kind of like praising this card. And then after a couple weeks, it kind of got phased out. But it's just always been consistent. You know what I mean? Like, it's always been just good. You can climb again, once again, get to Master Ball with it. It's very solid, very good card to invest in my opinion. I like to think that this card fits in a similar category as Giratina EX and Magneton, because all three cards you can essentially run in any color archetype. Looking at Giratina EX and Magneton, it's still very good to this day. And yeah, with that being said, Jumpluff EX takes the title as the best grass type Pokemon card. And as I mentioned earlier, a close contender is Leafeon. I can very much see Leafeon EX coming back into the meta, especially if they add more broken grass type cards that require a lot of energy. But we shall see. I feel like as time goes on, the meta just keeps on getting faster and faster. So building cards with high energy requirements becomes less viable. And again, looking at Jumpluff, one energy and it's attack. The next type that we will be going over is fighting type. And this card has been super just goated ever since release. Essentially a must run in most fighting type decks. Nowadays got kind of phased out, but again in the future I can very much see this card being paired with another very broken fighting type card. The best fighting type card from 2025 goes to Rampardos. Non-EX Rampardos. This card is an absolute behemoth. Doing 130 damage, only requires one energy, and is a non-EX. Also apparently only 5'3". Damn, I expected this guy to be a lot taller, but that's pretty interesting. I'm taller than Rampardos. This card is an amazing late game finisher. I've won a ton of battles late game, just like getting him out, doing 130 and just winning the game. Looking at past common pairings, we had this card paired with Marshadow Sudowoodo, Garchomp EX, Donphan EX, and of course Silvally, adding a bit of consistency to that deck, given that this Pokemon's basic card is a trainer card, technically. And sure, that it is kind of limiting, but in the case of like Silvally, if you run a pure Silvally Rampardos deck, you are guaranteed a type null your first turn. Same thing with Donphan EX decks. So yeah, Rampardos getting a ton of value. However, nowadays, fighting type is kind of dead. I mean, Megalopon EX slowly revived it, getting a ton of value using that Mega EX Pokemon. However, that Pokemon, of course, is RNG dependent to be viable. And you can even argue that you could run Rampardos in that deck to do more consistent damage. But overall, when it comes to 2025 as a whole, Rampardos is essentially the face of fighting type. And again, I mean, in the future, as I mentioned, could still be somewhat viable, especially if they add a card that pairs well with Rampardos. And only time will tell. Megalopony is a good step in the direction of making fighting more viable, and I want to see that in the future, man. Make fighting, put fighting on top, put fighting back on top. I would very much like to see that. And yeah, Rampardos takes the title as 2025's best fighting type Pokemon. Heading down to Metal, I feel like Metal is like the definition of mid. You know what I mean? Like, it's good, but I mean, it's okay. It's just okay for the most part. Like, looking at like Dialga EX, good support, but you use that to primarily support like other Pokemon such as Arceus EX, even Mew EX back. There was also non-EX Skarmory, just an amazing poke card upon release. Nowadays, definitely got phased out. And in current metal cards, I feel like focus a lot on building energy. Like looking at Mega Steelix EX requires 4 energy just to attack. And I feel like the way the meta progressed, it isn't really that viable. And I feel like there's only one metal Pokemon that rose above its ranks. And of course, the metal card is Solgaleo EX. Hands down the most meta-relevant metal Pokemon in the game. Upon release, instantly S tier. Super easy to use. Ability is super convenient as well, Rising Road. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may switch it with your active Pokemon. So essentially a free retreat, counteracts cards such as Repel and Sabrina, and super satisfying to use. And over time, it got better and better because when it first came out, I mean, sure, we had rare candies. However, later on, we got Shiinotic to add a bit more consistency. And then later on, Sylveon EX. Even nowadays, I mean, you could pair Solgaleo EX with either Raikou, Entei, or Suicune, getting a ton of value. And then nowadays, the card is still fairly decent. And you could argue that it's better than modern day Metal EX Pokemon. Primarily because looking at the engine requirement is 120, an amazing pairing with ability as well as the attack, doing 120 and only requiring 2 energy to attack. So easy to build, easy to get out. The only main downside is that after attacking you do take 10 damage of recoil, but there are cards to help you out. The most popular is Leftovers, essentially just healing that damage flat out. And yeah, Solgaleo EX is the best metal type Pokemon from 2025. The next type that we will be going over is Dragon type. And looking at the list, it really does suck being a dragon in this game because I mean there's really not many good cards. I mean sure there's Gumi. Gumi's pretty good for disruption, not really attacking. Dragonite EX as well, I mean requires a bit of build up. It does 180 damage. However, your next turn after attacking, you're essentially vulnerable. I mean sure there is a workaround with Fossils and Lyra. You can definitely work with that. But overall, it really isn't that viable given that it requires a ton of setup. Druddigon as well, an amazing chip card back in the day. Nowadays, not really that good. I mean, if anything, Zangoose is far better since Zangoose has the exact same ability as Druddigon. But for that card, you can potentially attack. And then looking at Druddigon's energy requirement, I mean, it's rather abysmal even today. So given how much love Dragon type got over the months, I ended up choosing non-EX Dragonite as the best Dragon type card from 2025. This card, a bit of RNG, but very satisfying to use. You're going to get a lot of enjoyment using this card. Using this card, you could potentially just win in one turn. You can get potentially 3 points depending on what Pokemon your opponent have out on the field. You can just flat out just one shot all of them, getting 3 points just like that. But looking at the meta, I mean Dragonite I think it did briefly get into tournaments, like saw some viability, but in the grand scheme of things eventually did get phased out because of course like it requires a bit of RNG. But again, looking at all the other Dragon type cards, nothing can really compete against Dragonite in my opinion. I mean you could argue the EX version might be better, but at the same time, I mean, I feel like it's very hard to make that work, of course. And then same thing, very similar to Dragonite. I mean, it does require 4 energy, so it does require a bit of build-up. But you can potentially get a ton of value. And despite the RNG, you might find non-EX Dragonite to be far more consistent than Dragonite EX. But even then, not the best. I mean, it's fun. But if you try to make Dragonite work in like Master Ball, it might work. Sure, you could get to Master Ball using Dragonite. Like, it could happen. I mean, freaking quite recently, a person using Mega Gyarados EX ended up winning a tournament. So anything, given that, I mean, anything is possible. Yeah. But even then, just looking at other color archetypes, Dragon type is definitely the weakest. Kind of obvious, and it really does kind of suck. I mean, Dina can very much turn around Dragon type. We shall see in the future. But looking at this year, non-EX Dragonite is the best Dragon type card from 2025. The next type we'll be going over is Fire type. A lot of contenders. I feel like Fire type has always been just rather good. I mean, early game, you got Genetic Apex, Charizard. Yeah, that guy's hit like an absolute truck. One of my favorite decks to use back in the day, but I do still hate Moltres EX with a passion. Very unreliable. We have the other Charizard from Shining Revelry. Very good, especially once they added Rare Candy. Flareon EX is also pretty good as well. Mega Blaziken EX, rather new. A lot of people hype that card to be just the best card in Mega Rising, including me. Like, I thought that was going to be super good. As time goes by, Mega Altaria, even Mega Absolute EX saw more viability. So yeah, a lot of contenders on who will be the best Fire type card. Ultimately, I ended up choosing this card, and the card is Incineroar EX. This card has been amazing since release. Keep in mind, this card came out in the same pack as Lily and Rare Candy, so already benefiting from Rare Candy right off the bat, doing easy 50 damage with Fire Fang while also burning your opponent. And then in a couple turns, you can use Scart, Charge, Smash, and do 140 damage. And if you want to stretch it even further, there is the How supporter card, which gives Incineroar plus 30 more damage. So you can do up to 170, with type advantage 190. And yeah, you could argue that Shining Revelry Charizard is far better than Incineroar EX. If you're going against a pure non-EX deck, I feel like Incineroar EX is better since it can just easily attack with Fire Fang. Whereas Charizard EX, you do have to stoke before the card gets fully built. And yeah, Incineroar EX had high meta prominence for several months. Nowadays, kind of fell off, but don't sleep in this card because there is Flame Patch supporting this guy. So I mean, you could lead with, I can very much see people running like Entei EX, Incineroar decks. Also keep in mind, this card does do burn damage. In other words, it does kind of counteract Oricorio. I mean, it is kind of a stretch nowadays though, keep in mind, because a lot of people run PC Lady in Oricorio decks. So I mean, it could just negate the damage flat out. But overall, don't sleep in this guy. I feel like this guy has a lot of potential. Another honorable mention came out in Crimson Blaze is Charmeleon. Now in this card meta, I don't think Charmeleon is that good. I mean, Mega Charizard Y EX, sure, he hits like a truck, but in the grand scheme of like the tournaments and the meta, doesn't really see much success, but it is a Charmeleon, keep in mind. So in the future, I can very much see them adding a very broken Charizard card, non-EX Charizard card that pairs well with Charmeleon. And also keep in mind, I mean, we have already 2 copies of Charizard EX. I wouldn't be surprised if they add a 3rd copy, as well as Mega Charizard X. We got Charizard Y this month. They're definitely saving Charizard X for something special. Alright, the last Pokemon type that we will be going over is Colorless. Keep in mind, after this, we will be going over the best item and supporter card, but this is the last Pokemon. And looking at Colorless, there's a lot of contenders. For one thing, Arceus EX, I mean, an amazing card. You can just do fast 130 damage. Slowly got phased out the meta, but it's like an on and off card. It comes back to the meta from time to time just to say hi. And even nowadays, I mean, you could see some viability with that, running that card with baby Pokemon such as Pachirisu paired with Oricorio. Also something to note that upon release, this card did have an kind of like an ability link system where certain non-EXs were reliant on either Arceus EX or non-EX Arceus being on the field to achieve their max potential. So cards such as Rotom, Carnivine, Heatran, and even Tyranitar were all reliant on having Arceus on your field. And that was rather interesting at the time. I mean, most of them didn't really work, like Tyranitar. Yeah, it's just, I made a deck showcase, it wasn't really that good. However, there were some good ones such as Heatran and Rotom Carnivine being very prominent in the meta. And of course, the Arceus archetype did get phased out later on. But another common pairing is with Darkrai and Giratina. Was very good until people realized that Darktina is better on their own without Arceus. So, but yeah, overall a very fun card to use. However, not deserving of the title of the best colorless Pokemon from 2025. A close contender, but ultimately doesn't get there. And with that being said, the best colorless Pokemon from 2025 is Silvally, non-EX Silvally. This card, upon release, just dominated the meta. I remember that rank very profoundly because 70% of my battles were against Silvally. Like, it was very just dominating the meta in ranked in tournaments, and overall a very fun card to use, requiring only 2 energy, does 50 base damage, and does 50 more if you use a supporter card that turn. And that's very easy to achieve. I meant Professor's Research, Mars, Cyrus, Sabrina, like there's a lot of cards that you could just pair. There's a lot of supporter cards that synergize well with Silvally. And looking at the previous decks, the first deck that I used was Silvally paired with Rampardos. Using that pairing, you are guaranteed a type null your first turn. The main downside is going first, because if you do go first, you'll be attacking with Silvally your 3rd turn. Yeah, whereas if you go second, you attack your 2nd turn. Another common pairing that helps with going first was with Zeraora, making so that your 2nd turn going first, you could just use Zeraora's ability to generate a free lightning energy, use Dawn, and then Silvally's is fully built. Yeah. And then later on, we got, of course, addition of baby Pokemon, just further supporting Silvally, also Elemental Switch. So just overall a very fun and consistent Pokemon card. And nowadays, still viable, but not the best non-EX. I mean, Magnezone Oricorio is far better in my opinion, as well as Magnezone Greninja. Yeah, Magnezone is just so good in the current meta, and it really does suck, but you could still see some viability with Silvally. I mean, keep in mind, it is colorless, so later on in 2026, they can very much add a card that synergizes well with Silvally. I can very much see that, and yeah, Silvally takes the title as the best colorless Pokemon from 2025. All right, we are in the home stretch. Hopefully you guys like the video so far, and hopefully it's not too long. I've been recording for like over an hour, but yeah, nevertheless, hopefully you guys enjoy. So getting into trainer cards, we'll first go over the best item card. Also a quick disclaimer, I will be excluding promo cards, so Pokeball, Professor Research won't be on this list. But even then, I feel like this card was just meta defining. This revolutionized how you play the game, and I feel like me saying that, it's kind of obvious what this card is, and that is Rare Candy, the best item card from 2025, because pre-Rare Candy getting stage 2s was rather a chore. And of course, this was before like Copycat, the legendary dog trio, Sylveon EX, so cards that help with generating cards from your deck. So getting your stage 2 out could take far longer than it should. So a ton of RNG. So given that, I mean, your 3rd turn, you could just get your stage 2 out. And I do remember seeing that in rank, like people would just like be super consistent, placing down Skull Fossil, their next turn evolving into Cranidos, and then a turn after that evolving into Rampardos and just beating me up. That could happen with the right amount of RNG, but overall very inconsistent to get stage 2s out, and a lot of people did prefer stage 1s and even basic Pokemon rather than stage 2s. I mean, I feel like that's primarily the reason why Gyarados EX was pretty good. And then looking at post-Rare Candy, stage 2s became what it is today, this being very easy to get out. And then nowadays, decks that run stage 2 Pokemon, excluding Pokemon such as Magnezone, given that you get a ton of value with Magneton, stage 2 decks primarily run either one copy of their middle evolution or none at all. And in some cases, the addition of Rare Candy was literally life-changing for some Pokemons. One that comes to mind is Shining Revelry Charizard. When that card was first released, it wasn't that good because it just took too long to get out, since of course you had to kind of manually evolve. and then once it gets out, you have to use Stoke, and it just takes so long to just do that 150 damage. I remember in that meta, more people preferred to run Genetic Apex Charizard over Shining Revelry, but then once rare candies were introduced to the game, the card became much better than its Genetic Apex counterpart, being far more consistent, easy to build up, and just attack. And yeah, with that being said, given that there aren't really any other item cards that affected the meta as much as rare candy takes the place as the best item card from 2025. The next trainer card type that we will be going over is Poké Tool. There's a lot of very good contenders in this type right here. So for one thing, there's Electrical Cord, amazing. You can get a lot of value. Leftovers, essentially a must run for Galeo. Poison Barb is doing a bit of just chip damage, very nice. But I feel like there are only really 2 Poké Tools that have stood the test of time. Like they came out, they kind of pioneered Poké Tools in a sense. They came out in the first batch and they've just been super goated ever since. And although they're both great, I feel like one of them is slightly better. And with that being said, the best Poké Tool from 2025 is Giant Cape. And a close contender, of course, is Rocky Helmet. Again, came out in Space Time Smackdown, so they kind of introduced Poké Tools into the meta. A much welcome addition, and yeah, Rocky Helmet, amazing just to do a bit more chip damage, just flat out doing 20 damage after your opponent attacks your active Pokemon. So that can help you a lot, especially paired with other kind of chip cards such as Darkrai EX's ability, Non-EX Greninja's ability, also Red. You can just pair Red to do a bit more damage. And although, again, as I mentioned earlier, 20 damage does seem rather little, it definitely adds up and it can definitely determine if you're going to win or lose the game. So yeah, Rocky Helmet is good, but I feel like Giant Cape is slightly better because it helps a ton with survivability. So yeah, Rocket Helmet doing 20 damage could definitely win you the game. Same thing with Giant Cape, adding 20 more HP to your active Pokemon can definitely determine if your opponent's active is going to one-shot. One scenario that comes to mind is with Oricorio. Oricorio has a base 70 HP plus Giant Cape up to 90. And there's a lot of non-EXs that are very easy to get out that do 70 to 80 damage. So Sableye, non-EX Sableye does 70 damage. Non-EX Greninja does 80 damage, as I mentioned earlier. So with that being said, I mean, yeah, Oricorio is surviving for one more turn, and that one turn can determine a lot if you're going to win or lose. And also, I mean, looking at other Pokemon, Suicune EX has 140 HP, plus Giant Cape up to 160. Using Giant Cape onto Suicune will make it so that Suicune can survive attacks from Pokemon such as Shining Revelry Charizard. And also, if you want to think about it, as well as Pokemon to do 130 HP paired with Red, Suicune EX will be surviving with 10 HP. And again, that one turn can determine if you're going to win or lose. So yeah, and in regards to all the Poké Tools I did mention, Giant Cape is universal. It can be run in essentially any color archetype, whereas of course Leaf Cape runs primarily in Grass, Electric Cord primarily in Lightning, Steel Apron, Metal, Dark Pendant, Darkness. So yeah, you can kind of see where I'm getting at right here. Giant Cape is just good all around, getting a ton of value. And with that being said, if you're a new player, I feel like you definitely should have 2 copies of both Rocky Helmet and Giant Cape in your deck, because you're getting a ton of value in regards to making decks. And again, a lot of decks do run them. So yeah, with that being said, Giant Cape is the best Poké Tool from 2025. And last but not least, the best trainer card. If you guys made it to this point in the video, again, make sure to like and subscribe. So there's a lot of contenders. I mean, looking at all the trainer cards, we have Mars, Sabrina, even recent ones such as May, Copycat. But I feel like none of them compete to this guy. This guy is just like definitely the most popular win condition trainer card in the game and has won me a ton of games personally, and equally so lost me a ton of games. I feel like once you see this card being played, especially towards the late game, a lot of people just concede. They're like, all right, it's basically GG. And that trainer card is a 28-year-old man himself, Cyrus. You get so much value with this card. So I feel like in most decks, like 99% of decks, you want to run at least one copy of Cyrus. This card's main role, aside from just winning you the game, is to give your opponent anxiety, especially if you have Pokemon in your bench that have taken damage and can get one-shotted. So yeah, back in the day, it was rather tame with Cyrus. You would attack your opponent's Pokemon, they would retreat, trying to escape, but little did they know, this 28-year-old man is creeping in the shadows. It's about to pull them back into the active and then just one-shot win the game. That still happens nowadays, but I feel like it's gotten to it even more extreme, primarily because of Greninja, non-EX Greninja, once again being able to just chip the backline. So again, as I mentioned earlier, a very powerful combo is the Greninja Cyrus combo. You would use Greninja's ability to chip your opponent's bench Pokemon, then use Cyrus, pulling them into the active and just beating them up. And yeah, overall Cyrus does get a ton of value towards the late game. But one thing to note with Suicune Greninja decks is that they primarily run 2 copies of Cyrus. So that's, yeah, what's scarier than 1 Cyrus? 2 Cyruses. So yeah, given this, you can use the Cyrus Greninja combo 2 times, essentially taking out your opponent's bench Pokemon one by one, and is getting a ton of value. And I feel like that combo is just absolutely broken. And even without that, again, Cyrus gets a ton of value just being very good towards the late game. There's also a ton of Pokemon that do target the bench, such as Hitmonlee, Jirachi, Heatmore. So Cyrus stocks continue to rise and will most likely rise for the foreseeable future unless they add a very broken trainer card or even item card that does Cyrus's job a lot better. And yeah, with that being said, Cyrus takes the title as the best supporter card from 2025. And yeah, it's the video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Hopefully you guys do agree. And again, if you disagree, let me know in the comments below. But once again, please keep it civilized. Also, make sure, again, to like and subscribe. I feel like when it comes to my videos, this video might be the most strenuous on my voice. Literally talking for like an hour and a half. And yeah, with that being said, it really does help me out mentally if you do like and subscribe. I'm gonna go eat lunch. I'm actually so hungry right now. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Peace.